The Cambridge Dictionary defines a delusion as something a person believes and wants to be true when it is actually not true. So in other words, a delusion is simply faith in a lie. In this present evil age, there are far too many delusions to count. But certain delusions are more dangerous and more widely accepted. Therefore, they have a remarkably profound impact on our modern society. But did you know that these massive and interconnected delusions were prophesied in the Bible, and they are directly associated with the coming of the Antichrist? Paul explains, "The coming of the lawless one is according to the working of Satan, with all power, signs, and lying wonders, and with all unrighteous deception among those who perish, because they did not receive the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this reason, God will send them strong delusion, that they should believe the lie, that they all may be condemned, who did not believe the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness." The apostle mentions lying wonders, unrighteous deception, strong delusion, and a lie that will lead to condemnation for all those who take pleasure in unrighteousness. So, interconnected delusions that lead people into the bondage of sin are definitely candidates for the ultimate fulfillment of this prophecy. Now, when Paul says that God will send strong delusion to certain people, it's important to understand that the individuals who will eventually choose to firmly believe the lie will first willingly reject the love of the truth of the Bible, which would have saved them if they had accepted it. In other words, because many people freely choose sin over the truth of God's word that calls us to repentance and obedience in love, God will let their rebellious choice stand. He will allow their choice to prefer wickedness and lies to metastasize into a cancerous and deadly delusion in the place of his unchanging truth. Truly, the Lord knows how to deliver the godly out of temptations and to reserve the unjust under punishment for the day of judgment. We can be sure that all godly people will receive a liberating love of the truth, and God's word will deliver them from every temptation. But inevitably, the unjust will fall because they willfully reject the life-saving light of the Scriptures and choose slavery to sin instead. So while James alludes back to the parable of the four soils, he writes, "Therefore lay aside all filthiness and overflow of wickedness, and receive with meekness the implanted word, which is able to save your souls. But be doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves." Beyond all doubt, either God's word will keep you from sin, or sin will keep you from God's word. And with that axiom in mind, let's explore just how completely wrong things can get when people drift away from the firm anchor of the Bible and believe a lie instead of the truth. The word Holocaust actually comes from the biblical Greek word holocauston. This compound Greek word is used 68 times in the Septuagint translation of the Hebrew Scriptures, and it means a whole burnt offering. But in our modern world, because of the evil actions of delusional men, the word Holocaust has come to mean destruction or slaughter on a mass scale. Nazi Germany, under the twisted and evil leadership of Adolf Hitler, murdered 6 million Jews, 7 million Soviet civilians, 3 million Soviet prisoners of war, and 1.8 million Polish civilians, along with many others. And all of these precious lives were senselessly destroyed because a large group firmly believed an unrighteous deception instead of the truth. But before they believed the lie that certain people are inferior to other people, God's truth had to be rejected. And history records that very moment when Hitler himself said, "The day will come when I shall hold up against these commandments the tables of a new law." And history will recognize our movement as the great battle for humanity's liberation, a liberation from the curse of Mount Sinai, from the dark stammerings of nomads who could no more trust their own sound instincts, who could understand the divine only in the form of a tyrant who orders one to do the very things one doesn't like. This is what we are fighting against: the masochistic spirit of self-torment, the curse of so-called morals idolized to protect the weak from the strong in the face of immortal law of battle, the great law of divine nature. Against the so-called 10 Commandments, against them we are fighting. And after rejecting the revealed Word of God, Hitler went on to write, "The personification of the devil as the symbol of all evil assumes the living shape of the Jew." So eventually, Hitler believed the Jew to be less than human instead of properly recognizing that they were people made in the image and likeness of God, and that led to his ferocious atrocities. As always, twisted theology leads to twisted ideas, and twisted ideas lead to twisted actions. So we must allow the Bible to be our absolute source of ultimate truth, not our own deceptive hearts or fallen perspectives. Hitler's demonic thinking caused shocking and evil actions, and about our planet that is still stained with this terrible sin, the Bible warns, "You shall not pollute the land where you are, for blood defiles the land, and no atonement can be made for the land for the blood that is shed on it, except by the blood of him who shed it." But while the earth is still crying out for God's vengeance about this terrible injustice, Gary M. Grobman recounts, in the aftermath of the Holocaust, the civilized world was shocked to see photographs of unimaginable horror. Skeletons of victims stacked in piles of hundreds and thousands. Living skeletons describing unspeakable brutality and atrocity. And searching for the truth as to what would permit this to occur without intervention. To answer the question, what would permit the Holocaust to occur without intervention, I want to speak to you today about another earth-polluting, hidden Holocaust that is going on in our world. And it's based on dangerous, deceptive delusions, just like Hitler's horrendous Holocaust was also. According to the World Health Organization, every year in the world, there are an estimated 40 to 50 million abortions. This corresponds to approximately 125,000 abortions per day, and that is 1.5 abortions every second. And right here, in the country we live in, 4 out of 10 unintended pregnancies are terminated by abortion. There are over 3,000 abortions per day, and 22% of all pregnancies in the USA end as a result of premeditated abortion. So just in the United States, there are at least 2 abortions every minute. In fact, while we listen to this 30-minute sermon, on average, 68 unborn children will die in America, and approximately 2,600 unborn heartbeats will be snuffed out around the world just in 1/2 hour while we comfortably sit in this room. NationalRightToLife.com estimates that since the U.S. Supreme Court legalized abortion 44 years ago in Roe v. Wade and Doe v. Bolton, more than 58 million unborn American citizens have lost their lives, and this obviously means that the death toll of the hidden Holocaust in the United States is much heavier in human lives at this point than the appalling carnage that occurred under Hitler. But what truth does the Word of God present that so many are rejecting, ultimately allowing such a strong, wicked delusion to seemingly justify the wholesale slaughter of so many of the most innocent human lives? Well, Scripture is clear that the child in the womb is exactly that, a human child. Luke writes, "And it happened, when Elizabeth heard the greeting of Mary, that the babe leaped in her womb, and Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Spirit." Luke did not say that the fetus, or the clump of cells, leaped in Elizabeth's womb. He said the babe. And later, Elizabeth summarized, "For indeed, as soon as the voice of your greeting sounded in my ears, the babe leapt in my womb for joy." The word used here twice for babe, while John was still in the womb, was brephos. But this is the same word Peter uses when he writes, "As newborn babes desire the pure milk of the word, that you may grow thereby." And Paul also uses the Greek word brephos when he told Timothy, "From childhood you have known the Holy Scriptures, which are able to make you wise for salvation through faith which is in Christ Jesus." So by using a very specific word in these passages, the Bible indicates that the babe in Elizabeth's womb was equal to a newborn baby and equal to a child who could know and understand the Scriptures. Plus, Scripture indicates that John leapt in his mother's womb. He felt joy, and he was filled with the Holy Spirit even from his mother's womb. But the secular culture of this present evil age has rejected God's word, and they frequently claim that the child inside the mother's womb is not worth the same protections as the child that has been born. They ignore passages of divine revelation which say such things as, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I sanctified you. I ordained you as a prophet to the nations." And they claim, much like Hitler did with the Jews, that the unborn are less human than the born. Now, before we look at the many other strong delusions that the pro-abortion advocates accept, we should probably note that science is on the side of the Bible in the case of abortion regarding when human life begins. Van Nostrand's Scientific Encyclopedia explains, "At the moment the sperm cell of the human male meets the ovum of the female, and the union results in a fertilized ovum or zygote, a new life has begun." As reported on liveactionnews.org, in 1981, April 23rd to April 24th, a Senate Judiciary Subcommittee held hearings on the question of when human life begins. Appearing to speak on behalf of the scientific community was a group of internationally known geneticists and biologists who had the same story to tell, namely, that human life begins at conception or fertilization, and they told their story with a complete absence of opposing testimony. Dr. Micheline M. Matthews-Roth of Harvard Medical School gave confirming testimony supported by references from over 20 embryology and other medical textbooks that human life began at fertilization. And she said, "It is incorrect to say that biological data cannot be decisive. It is scientifically correct to say that an individual human life begins at conception." The father of modern genetics, Dr. Jerome Lejeune, told the lawmakers to accept the fact that after fertilization has taken place, a new human has come into being is no longer a matter of taste or opinion. It is plain experimental evidence. Each individual has a very neat beginning at conception. Dr. McCarthy Demir, medical doctor and law professor from the University of Tennessee, testified the exact moment of the beginning of personhood and of the human body is at the moment of conception. Dr. Alfred Bongiovanni, professor of pediatrics and obstetrics at the University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine, concluded, "I am no more prepared to say that these early stages represent an incomplete human being than I would be to say that the child prior to the dramatic effects of puberty is not a human being. I have learned from my earliest medical education that human life begins at the time of conception." And countless other scientists state firmly and unambiguously that a unique, living human being begins its existence at the moment of conception, when the male sperm fertilizes the female's egg and a zygote is produced. At that moment, a new life, genetically distinct from his or her mother and father, has entered the world for the very first time, and he or she is simply hidden in the mother's womb while developing into what we visually recognize as a baby. Only 3 weeks and 1 day after fertilization, the heart begins to beat. 5 weeks after conception, the baby's brain and face are rapidly developing. 6 weeks after conception, the baby's arms and legs are growing longer and fingers have begun to form. 8 weeks after conception, the baby's eyelids begin to close to protect his or her developing eyes. And in general, after the 12th week of pregnancy, as long as violence does not disrupt this amazing process of the baby's growth, the odds are very good that the child will be successful in transitioning from the womb to the world. Now, since there have been so many scientific advancements in our society towards understanding the unborn child in the womb, even some pro-abortion advocates have openly acknowledged the reality that abortion ends a human life. American writer and commentator Mary Elizabeth Williams wrote in the online magazine Salon, "I know that throughout my own pregnancies, I never wavered for a moment in the belief that I was carrying a human life inside of me. I believe that's what the fetus is, a human life. And that doesn't make me one iota less solidly pro-choice." But she very honestly went on to admit her perspective on life in general by saying, "Here is the complicated reality in which we live. All life is not equal, and a fetus can be a human life without having the same rights as the woman in whose body it resides. She's the boss, her life, and what is right for her circumstances and her health should automatically trump the rights of the non-autonomous entity inside of her, always." And here we see the answer to the question posed about Hitler's Holocaust, which was, what would permit this to occur without intervention? The answer obviously is, some people believe that all life is not equal, and the supposedly superior rights of some individuals allow them to extinguish the lives of others. But God has said, "Whoever sheds man's blood, by man his blood shall be shed. For in the image of God he made man. And you shall not murder." So because the issue of abortion obviously involves a human life, as science and the Bible have unanimously confirmed, abortion is not primarily a political debate. Instead, it's a moral controversy. But because the abortion advocates have rejected a love of the truth to be saved, they have been given over to strong delusions that allow for continued slavery to sin and rebellion against God. And one place this delusion can be seen is in the twisting of the English language. Would we allow a Nazi to label their movement as pro-choice while they slaughtered the Jews? Would we allow radical Muslim terrorists to label their jihad as pro-choice as they massacred innocent civilians? Why then does our society allow the term pro-choice to go unchallenged when it refers to the murder of the unborn child? Since when is murder a choice that a civilized society allows? We can support choices such as abstinence from activities that cause pregnancies. We can support choices that prevent the fertilization of a female egg with the male seed. And we can support choices like adoption. But we cannot support anyone's right to choose to take another innocent human being's life after that innocent life has been created. Also, someone might abort a launch at NASA or a mission in Afghanistan. But why does our culture allow the term abortion to apply to the murder of the innocent in the womb? Twisted language like pro-choice and abortion are simply smokescreens to mask the atrocities that are happening in our neighborhoods all around this country. How can we allow people to pervert the English language by claiming that a completely unique human being in the womb of another human being is only one body? When they say, it's my body and I will do what I want with it, they are overtly ignoring the little fingers and toes of a much smaller body within, and they are violating countless moral and logical truths. They claim that they want access to health care, but what they really mean is legal murder on demand of the helpless child, created by their own sexual choices and experiences. But after a while, we stop hearing the lunacy of this twisted and delusional perversion of language. How is it caring for a person's health to intentionally rip off their arms and legs and crush their skull so that they can be murdered in what should be the safest place on earth? How can a doctor who is pledged to have utmost respect for human life from its beginning claim to be involved in health care while destroying a scientifically proven human life? How can we tolerate the claim that a legal approval of the murder of babies in the womb is a fundamental woman's right or an issue of reproductive rights? Where are the rights of the baby? Who will protect these innocent lives from the deceived and struggling mother who needs help doing the right thing, not permission to do the wrong thing? Don't little girls in the womb fall under the demand for a woman's rights? And little boys under the demand for human rights? When we hear the pro-murder advocates, and that's what they really are, by the way, because the specific choice they desire to exercise is murder, when we hear them say it's just tissue or it's only a clump of cells, ask them, what makes you more human than that unborn child? The unborn baby has a heartbeat, and they have a heartbeat. The unborn baby has a body, and they have a body. The unborn baby feels pain and joy, and they can feel pain and joy. We can ask them, what's to stop someone like Hitler from coming along and arbitrarily deciding that you are less human so that they can do what they want to you? Just like Hitler labeling the Jews as subhuman and the anti-abolitionists labeling the slaves as subhuman, the pro-murder advocates are labeling certain human beings as less than human, and they are denying their fundamental right to life, even while science and the Bible cry out from the housetops that these little babies are unique human beings, just like you and I, made in the image of God. Frankly, they are calling these precious and helpless children subhuman clumps of cells so that they can abuse them and kill them just like Hitler did to the Jews. Also, the pro-murder advocate will use words like fetus and embryo to further dehumanize the child. But we have already shown that from the zygote to the embryo to the fetus to the child to the teenager to the adult to the senior citizen, the genetic information remains the same. And while development, growth, and transformations do happen, those stages of growth don't make a person any less human. But beyond their use of twisted and delusional words, the twisted logic of the pro-murder activist also demonstrates the strong delusion involved in their cause. For example, when Roe v. Wade was decided in the Supreme Court, the right to an abortion was established based on the supposed constitutional right to privacy. Based on the ambiguous right to privacy, the delusional United States Supreme Court ruled that infanticide in the womb must be permitted for any reason a woman chooses until the child becomes viable. And after the vague criteria of viability is met, murder must still be permitted if an abortion doctor deems the murder necessary to protect a woman's health. But the health of the woman was later defined by the court as all factors: physical, emotional, psychological, familial, and the woman's age, relevant to the well-being of the patient. So, an abortion doctor who makes his or her living by murdering babies in their mother's womb can deem murder necessary for the health of the mother, for essentially any reason. Familial reasons include the mother may believe that she has too many children already, so this child is perceived as a burden on the family. Emotional or psychological reasons might include the stress the baby would cause the mother, for any reason, such as finances, convenience, career, or responsibility. Also, emotional and psychological reasons might perhaps include a potential risk of postpartum depression. The truth is that because of Roe versus Wade and Doe versus Bolton, the U.S. is one of only 4 nations, including North Korea, China, and Canada, that permits murder in the womb for any reason. And in America, based on the right to privacy, a woman can kill her baby for essentially any reason at any point of her pregnancy. However, in the Supreme Court's decision on Roe versus Wade, the court openly recognized that the Constitution itself does not expressly mention any right of privacy. Yet they use this unmentioned unconstitutional right as the foundation for their delusional decision. And while millions of babies are being legally slaughtered in the hidden Holocaust of these United States, supposedly because of a right to privacy, that same supposed right didn't protect Americans from their government collecting records on every single phone call made by every single American on an ongoing daily basis. So the right to privacy provides a legal right to commit homicide in the womb, but it can't stop government surveillance of every citizen's communication. Joseph W. Della Penna, a law professor at Villanova University, writes about the Supreme Court's decision in Roe versus Wade. The opinion is replete with irrelevancies, non sequiturs, and unsubstantiated assertions. The court decides matters, it disavows any intention of deciding, thereby avoiding any need to defend its conclusion. In the process, the opinion simply fails to convince. In the Yale Law Journal, eminent legal scholar John Hart Ely, a supporter of legal abortion, complained that Roe is bad constitutional law, or rather, it is not constitutional law and gives almost no sense of an obligation to try to be. And he also wrote, "What is frightening about Roe is that this super-protected right is not inferable from the language of the Constitution, the framers' thinking respecting the specific problem and issue, any general value derivable from the provisions they included, or the nation's governmental structure." In other words, legal scholars from both sides of this hotly contested moral issue agree that the Supreme Court's decision in Roe versus Wade, which legalized the murder of the unborn in the womb, has no legal basis in constitutional law, and it was a bad legal decision. That evil 1973 Supreme Court decision that legalized a nationwide Holocaust nearly 3 times larger than Hitler's Holocaust, struck down legally enacted laws in states all around the country, and it abolished the constitutional right to life of 58 million innocent little Americans who have been legally murdered since it was enacted 44 years ago. Next week, we'll see the ultimate solution to this problem, along with even more conclusive evidence that all of the thinking that allows this hidden Holocaust to continue is delusional and demonic. But I think so far today, we have demonstrated how bad things can get when people reject the truth of God's word and choose unrighteous deception over the love of the truth.